the Informed Traveler on National Travel Radio. I'm Randy Sharman. Getting a taxi at an airport is always a challenge, especially if you've never been there before. That leaves you open to scams and other rip-offs, but there is help out there in the form of IHateTaxis.com, and Todd Romaine is the co-founder of the website IHateTaxis.com. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning.
For those who have never heard of your website, I love the name IHateTaxis.com. Give us your story.
Well, we don't actually hate taxis. It's more of a jocular expression, but out of some form of frustration as well. Both my brother and I have traveled to about 50 countries each around the world, and in our travels, probably the largest annoyance has been getting from the airport to our hotels through the use of taxi or other forms of ground transportation, and facing, obviously, the hurdles of language barriers, scams, theft, and you name it. So we created a website to help empower travelers around the world to make proper decisions and have more information at their disposal so they can help counteract some of these scams that are going on throughout the world.
I think everyone can probably relate, and I think everyone has a story when it comes to taxis or getting transportation from an airport. Is there some basics people should be aware of? I'm sure it's a little different getting a taxi in New York City, for example, than it is Bangkok, Thailand, right?
There is, and I think with anything, there's a couple of things that you should always do. First of all, airports today, generally speaking, especially in the Western world, have numerous options available, and so I think you need to go. You can go to our website and check all the available options. It all depends on your priorities, your budget, and your time. If you're with business, then you're probably going to be the cost factor is probably not going to be a pressing concern for you, so you'll generally gravitate towards taking a taxi, a limo, or renting a car. But if it's at your own personal expense and you have a bit of a budget, then you're probably going to be considering options such as public transit, shuttles, and what have you. The first premise, though, is with anything, whether it be New York or Dhaka, Bangladesh, is that you should always confirm the price at the onset of your journey, whether it be in a shuttle or a taxi, to avoid any conflict down the road when you get dropped off at your hotel or halfway through the journey where the price magically moves up in value. So if you're in a country that doesn't speak English, our recommendation is you confirm that up to 3 times before you even step into the vehicle, just to avoid any kind of communication issue there. And make sure you confirm with the driver where to drop you off. There's always the chance that you'll be on a wild goose chase. I took a taxi in Antananarivo, Madagascar, many years ago there, and the taxi driver kind of had an idea where it was. And it took us about half an hour to get down there, and he realized he couldn't find it, and he gave up, and I was left on the streets of Antananarivo. Not the safest place to be in the world there with a knapsack, and had to find myself another taxi. So always confirm at the onset the driver knows exactly where you're going. Of course, with the introduction of GPS, that makes it much easier now. A lot of drivers in the developed world use GPS as a mechanism to find different locations, and also recommend that you use your own GPS as well to make sure that the driver is actually going from A to B as opposed to A to D via B, C, and so on. So that's the other thing, is make sure you know the driver where he's going. Memorize their identification number, so if you are taking a taxi and there could be a dispute and you need to complain about it, make sure you have some form of identifying the driver. Know a little bit of the local language, so if you're in Bangladesh, know a little bit of Bengali to get by, so you can communicate somewhat if there is a communication issue. And if there's disputes to the original price, then you need to stick with it. And leaving the money on the seat and walking into your hotel is an easy way to resolve that most of the time. If there's a scam taking place, the driver will definitely not follow you into the hotel there, where they'll be confronted by hotel management on that. We always recommend using the meter if you're taking a taxi. Mm-hmm. There seems to be less disputes with the meter, though you need to watch the meter because sometimes it can erratically jump if the driver has some kind of scam going on there. And here's another issue that we've come up with as well. If the driver appears to be shady from the onset of your journey, mm-hmm. always take your bags with you in the back seat there, because if he's shady at the onset of the trip, he could be that way towards the end. And the last thing you want is the driver to hijack your bags in the trunk, and it could be used as leverage to up the ante, so to speak. So take the bags with you in the back of the car there, make sure the doors are locked. Obviously, you have to use some common sense here. We would not recommend doing that in, say, Johannesburg or Detroit, where, of course, if you're going through the downtown core there, people see bags, they're going to smash windows, and your personal safety is at risk. Some other tips, of course, is regardless of whether you take a shuttle or a taxi or what have you, never indicate this is the first time to the city in question. Don't act all googly-eyed as you looked out the window there. If you're not used to the area at all, the driver will pick that up and possibly could take a long journey. So, yes, be informed and make sure that you pay attention to what's happening on while you get into the vehicle. Many people, all too often, sort of turn their brain off when they get to the airport and just relax till they get to the hotel there. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that take advantage of that.
Well, we always think of those faraway places, but even closer to home like Las Vegas, there's been problems recently, hasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest scam right now in Las Vegas, and we were working with Forbes.com on this, was that Las Vegas taxi cab drivers first do the long route, so they'll go through the tunnel and they'll actually charge passengers up to $8 more than the normal actual fare. And the second thing they do now, which is unheard of in the United States, is they charge a $3 surcharge every time you use your Interact or credit card when paying for a taxi. So, that adds significantly to the fare. And on top of that, they have on the PIN machine there, they have sort of quote-unquote mandatory tip, where it's either 20, 30, or 50% of the base fare there. So it resulted in millions of dollars of taxi fares being generated by ripping off unsuspected tourists. And of course, when you go to Vegas, people just want to go have fun. They're not really thinking about these things, and a lot of people, it's their first time to Vegas, and so they get ripped off.
Lots of great advice, and of course, the website is IHateTaxis.com. All you have to do is type in the name of the place you're going, and all kinds of information shows up there. It's a great website. And it's always great to talk to you, Todd. That's why we have you on now and again. Todd Romaine is the co-founder of IHateTaxis.com. Thanks, Todd. I appreciate your insight on this.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure, Randy.